It was to be a simple court hearing, another turn of the twisted path of custody battles. Robyn walked into the courtroom with head held high, the very picture of cool, but on the inside, her nerves hummed like fine glass. For months she had maintained her finely spun life, wove a story none of them dared question, but the DNA results were now in the judge's hands, mute and unforgiving. Ariella had been her daughter in all the ways that mattered, loved, cared for, cherished, but now the test was going to tell a different story, and the courtroom would not be ready for it. Mary, Robyn's estranged sister, occupied the left bench stiffly, clutching a stack of papers capable of undoing it all. She had not seen or heard from Robyn in weeks, ever since that explosive row at the last family gathering, when words had flown like daggers. "If you lie about a child," Mary had informed her, her voice icy, "you lie about everything." The lights in the courtroom buzzed softly overhead, their shadows long and deep on the polished wood. At the defense table, Robyn's attorney sat motionless, a gray pinstripe-clad man with a briefcase, not returning anyone's eye. The trial had been scandalous in whispers and sidelong glances, but today the truth would no longer be hidden. At precisely 9:03 a.m., the door opened. Robyn walked in, white-faced, trembling, eyes fixed on the floor. She evaded the judge, evaded Mary, evaded even her husband Cody, sitting behind her with arms crossed, jaw clenched, swaying ever so gently like a child in the corner. Robyn settled into her chair as if all air had been evacuated from her body. She clenched something under the table, a necklace, Ariella's, an amulet of fear and love. The judge did not take the trouble to waste 1 minute. "We convene here today regarding a challenge to the legal guardianship and birth certificate of the minor child, known as Ariella May Robinson," he said, voice unshaken but authoritative. "Third-party affidavit has been filed with the court in rebuttal to DNA tests ordered by Ms. Mary Robinson." Robyn growled something to her lawyer. He did not reply, but just glared at the judge like rock, unblinking. Behind them, the gallery was motionless, standing breathless in expectation. They were sure something was going to happen. They just didn't know how terrible it would turn out to be. Christine, seated in the third row, quietly extended her hand to Janelle, a silent signal, a gesture of encouragement for what was to come. The judge continued, "The petitioner has alleged that Ms. Robyn Robinson forged parentage documents and perjured herself under oath. Evidence includes expert hospital reports, sworn affidavits, and that key DNA test. Results have been confirmed." Gasps rippled through the room in tiny trembling waves like birds released from a cage. A woman in the back whispered under her breath, "Oh my God." Mary didn't flinch. Her jaw tightened. Her throat was dry. The judge slowly unfolded an envelope marked confidential, holding it high. "Please proceed and place the test results in the record. Ms. Robinson, would you care to make a statement before we proceed further?" Robyn's lips trembled. She opened her mouth. There was nothing. Silence stretched, taut as a wire across the courtroom. She looked over at Cody. His face was set, unyielding. Then, in a voice shattered by years of fear, she whispered, "She's mine. That is all I can say. She's my daughter." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Ms. Robinson, if it were otherwise, this court's decision could be an act of perjury. You sure?" Her eyes brimmed with tears. She nodded. The judge tore open the envelope, and the outcome of the DNA reading was read out. According to genetic testing done by 2 independent laboratories, the child assigned as Ariella May Robinson is not the biological child of Ms. Robyn Robinson. 0% chance of maternity. The courtroom did not break apart, it ground to a halt. Silence was thicker than any scream. Horror pressed down on every inch. Not only doubt, but Robyn's own knowledge. The stillness in the courtroom was oppressive, dense and heavy, like the air had been sucked out of it. Robyn covered her face in her hands, and cried, silently, nearly silently, the weight of all those years pressing upon her. Cody, hard and obstinate, sat sadder feet behind her, his jaws locked, his gaze darting nervously about the walls as if searching for a breath. Mary slowly stood up, moving slowly. All eyes were upon her as she reached into her purse and produced a wad of folded paper. The courtroom was collectively holding its breath. "Your Honor," she explained, her voice firm despite the shake in her hands, "I would like to present this to the court." The judge motioned for the bailiff to step forward. Mary produced a single sheet of paper, the original hospital wristband Ariella had received at birth. Everyone leaned forward as the judge unfolded it slowly. The name printed on the tag was unmistakable, indubitable. Melanie R. Williams, not Robyn, not even close. Christine breathed softly. Janelle's hand went to her lips, her eyes wide. The air was charged, electric, like before a storm. The gallery hummed softly, but everyone was afraid to raise their voices. The news wasn't only shocking, it was crushing. Robyn's lawyer bent forward, whispering desperately, but Robyn shook her head, unwilling to hear it. The judge's voice shattered the silence. We will take a 10-minute recess. When we return, we'll hear testimony from the nurse who delivered the baby. Robyn's eyes widened. She knew that nurse. She knew what she'd seen. The courtroom narrowed around her, walls closing in, every shadow speaking judgment. When the recess ended, the atmosphere had changed. Whispers were traded. Each person present drew in, holding, waiting for the next punch. Robyn sat quiet, makeup smudged, shoulders curled, hands clasped tightly across her belly. She looked tiny, fragile, as though the world had done something to her against her will. Cody paced in a tight orbit alongside the defense table, talking quickly to the lawyer. He slapped his hand on the high-shine wood at one moment, and made his water bottle shake free onto the floor. The bailiff did not flinch. This was no ordinary courtroom drama. The judge entered, eyes sharp, expression unreadable. Please call Nurse Sharon Mills to the stand, he said. Every head turned as a woman in her late 50s entered, calm but cautious, her badge clipped to her cardigan. Her calm, observing eyes were not to judge, but to reveal the truth. Miss Mills, the judge continued, were you present at the birth of Ariella May Robinson? She nodded cautiously, her words calculated. Yes, sir, I was the labor and delivery nurse. Was Robyn Robinson the biological mother of the child? The room seemed to close in, every heart halting, every eye fixed on the nurse. She halted, looked first at Robyn, then at the judge. No, she said, remaining calm but firm. A hush circulated through the gallery. This was not a discovery. It was an allegation. Cody leaped to his feet. That's impossible. There's been some sort of mistake. The judge held up a hand, silencing him. Sit down, Mr. Robinson. This court exists to discover the truth, not debate it. Robyn's shoulders shuddered, the sobs raw and raspy, ripped from her. No one took her hand in sympathy. Not Cody, not the spectators. She was alone with the collapse of the existence she built on half-truths and whispered deception. Mary inhaled a deep breath, face set and determined. She stepped forward once more, paper in hand. Your Honor, this corroborates the other witness. The gallery leaned forward. Every eye tracked Mary as she handed the crumpled page to the bailiff, who transferred it to the judge. The courtroom seemed to be holding its breath. Every lie, every hidden truth, every fabricated story was going to unravel further, piece by torturous piece. The judge opened the paper with slow deliberation, his eyes reading the text with calculated interest. Every line, every detail, dropped like a hammer blow in the quiet room. The words were direct, factual, but the effect was shattering. Melanie Williams was the biological mother. Robyn had no legal right. A whisper coursed through the gallery, silenced at once by the judge's gaze. Christine slapped her hand over her mouth. Janelle's eyes grew wide to stare, frozen in horror. Cody sat agog, his face a picture of incredulity, as Robyn's entire body collapsed forward, streaming with tears. This court has now heard testimony and documents that prove the child called Ariella is not the biological child of Miss Robyn Robinson, the judge stated matter-of-factly. Miss Robinson, would you like to say anything before going on? Robyn's lips trembled, one syllable escaping on a breath. She's mine, her voice cracked. The courtroom hung, anticipating her confession. That's all I can say, she's my daughter. Miss Robinson, said the judge, voice unyielding, should the court decide otherwise, your statement could be qualified as perjury. Are you certain? Robyn nodded through sobs. The judge took a deep breath and raised the DNA report. The envelope was slit gradually, the contents revealed to all, 0% probability of maternity. The courtroom didn't erupt into chaos, it froze, shock, outrage. Not necessarily because Robyn had lied, but because she had known. She had hidden this from them, let it grow and built an entire life on a child that wasn't hers. Janelle turned pale. Christine dropped her pen in shock. Cody shouted out, suddenly, there's a mistake. This has to be a mistake. The judge signaled with a hand. Sit down, Mr. Robinson. This court is not here to debate results. We are here to uncover the truth. Robyn sobbed into her hands, her tears rattling the room. Her frame shuddered with every intake of breath, and no one moved to comfort her, not even Kody. Then Mary stepped forward, deliberate but calm. She pulled out a second document from her purse, a wadded sheet of paper, and handed it to the bailiff. The courtroom leaned in, tension so thick it was possible to shiver on the air. This, Mary spoke softly, is the original hospital report recording the birth of the child as Melanie R. Williams. Everything checks out. Robyn was never the mother of Ariella. Gasp, spread like wildfire. A woman at the back mouthed softly, "Oh my God." The judge read slowly through the paper, his expression blank. He nodded, indicating that the testimony would be entered into the record. Robyn's sobs became louder. The courtroom was closing in on her. The carefully constructed life she had built was unraveling, piece by piece. Kody's face remained unforgiving, unyielding, but a fleeting fear crossed his eyes. Christine shot him a glare, whispering to Janelle, "This isn't about custody anymore, it's criminal." Mary interrupted the tension, firm but determined. "Your Honor, I'd like to have the nurse who was present at the birth testify next. She will authenticate everything." The judge nodded. "Very well. Nurse Mills, come on down." Sharon Mills rose to her feet, calm but firm, her hands folded over her badge. She wasn't here to make friends. She was here to speak the truth. The courtroom sat with bated breath, each face set on hers as she began to testify, and with each word, Robyn's world crumbled further apart. Nurse Sharon Mills approached the stand, her heels clicking lightly against the polished courtroom floor. She lifted her right hand and swore in. The room breathed in unison. "Were you working for Flagstaff Medical Center in April 20? Asked the judge. "Yes, sir," she answered firmly. "And did you witness the birth of a child by the name of Ariella May Robyn?" Sharon nodded, her eyes flashing briefly to Robyn. "Yes, I was there." "Was the biological mother of that child Miss Robyn Robinson?" Sharon hesitated. The courtroom silenced. Everyone had their eyes fixed on her. She breathed in sharply. "No, she wasn't." A murmur broke out in the gallery, but the judge's gavel silenced it at once. Kody's face paled. Robyn's fingers flew to her lips, horror and shock struggling for dominance in her eyes. "Who was the biological mother?" the judge inquired. "A woman named Melanie Williams," Sharon replied. "She came in as an emergency patient. She had no insurance, and told us she could not take the child. After the birth, the baby was handed over to a man with the proper documents for legal custody. Robyn Robinson remained outside the nursery, and would not speak to." Christine's hand shot to her mouth. Janelle slid forward, wanting to hear every detail. Kody's body stiffened. The man in the gray suit next to Robyn, her attorney, looked like he swallowed a rock. The judge called out over the spectacle, "Can you identify the man who kidnapped the child?" Sharon nodded slowly, nodding directly at Kody. "He was the one who took me the papers." Robyn remained silent. Gasps resounded. Kody jumped up from his chair. "This isn't legal. This is not an adoption procedure." The judge raised a hand. "Sit down, Mr. Robyn. The court will hear testimony, not objections." Mary's words rang out, steely and cold. "I saw the envelope in Kody's office 2 years ago. That was no adoption form. It was a payoff." Everybody looked at her. The atmosphere of the courtroom shifted. Robyn's body wilted further, one sob torn from her as the truth began to ravage her. Sharon continued, "I can confirm, from my records, that the man with papers instructed the baby to be relocated immediately. There was no guardianship form. Melanie had temporarily Robyn was an accessory by waiting around outside and letting it happen." Robyn's crying turned hoarse. The courtroom was silent, except for her wails. Kody's teeth clamped together, his eyes darting between Mary and Sharon, wanting some escape from the mounting evidence. The judge leaned forward, his tone sharp. "Miss Robinson, did you ever become familiar with the lack of biological relationship and the circumstances of this transfer?" Robyn's lips began to quiver. I thought it was legal." Kody said everything was okay. "I didn't know the whole thing." Kody sneered behind her. "Don't drag me into this now. You told me it was legal." Robyn wept, her voice cracking. "You told me she didn't want her. You told me it was paperwork. You lied." The judge slammed his gavel down. "That's enough. This is not a family argument. This is a courtroom. Every statement that is made here will be taken under oath." Mary stepped forward again, clutching an envelope sealed. "Your Honor, I have an affidavit signed by Melanie Williams 2 years ago. It states that she was coerced, was paid $120,000 cash, and never waived parental right. The courtroom froze, gasps filled the air. Robyn's face went white. Cody's hands trembled at his side. Every lie, every hidden secret truth, was being pulled into the sunlight. The judge took the affidavit from the bailiff, reading over the notarization and date carefully. "Miss Robinson," he declared, his eyes sharp, "you are charged not only with concealing the true parentage of Ariella, but with your participation in a conspiracy involving coercion and financial manipulation. Do you have anything to say?" Robyn's voice was cracked. I didn't know the whole thing. Cody told me that it was okay, that he had taken care of everything. I never did get to meet Melanie until weeks later." Cody's face twisted in anger. "Don't do this now, Robyn. You said you agreed to everything." "I didn't," she shouted, crying freely. "I assumed it was paperwork. I thought he was telling the truth." The judge slammed his gavel. "This is not a debate. This is the court. From here on forward, all evidence and testimony will be heard on the basis of law." Mary pulled out a duplicate of the original hospital wristband. "Your Honor, this wristband matches up with another mother, Melanie Williams, not Robyn." Gasps filled the courtroom once again. Christine whispered to Janelle, leaning in, "Check the name." Janelle's eyes widened with shock as she read out loud, "Melanie R. Williams, not Robyn, not even close." The judge nodded. "We will have a brief recess. On our return we will summon the nurse who attended the birth." Robyn's eyes went wide. She hunched in her chair, fingers grasping at tissues, and she knew exactly what was coming. Cody paced around the bench, swearing furiously with Robyn's attorney, banging his fist on the table in frustration. When the court reconvened, the atmosphere was thick. They all paused for breath in the gallery. Sharon Mills returned to the witness stand, subdued but firm. She had been a quiet witness until now, but her testimony would pierce all deception. "Miss Mills, did Melanie Williams return to the hospital?" the judge asked. "Once," Sharon replied, voice steady. 6 months later, she asked about the baby, but we could not give her answer. She left without her daughter." The courtroom absorbed the weight of her words. Robyn buried her face in her hands, weeping. Cody's fists were clenched, unable to stop the truth undivined. The judge leaned forward. "Miss Robinson, do you have any knowledge of financial transactions on behalf of this child?" Robyn hesitated. Mary smiled icily. I don't think so. Cody handled everything. He said it was all on the books, all paperwork. I never questioned him. I trusted him." Mary was talking again, but in a low and frosty tone. "Trust isn't a valid defense in court. You allowed a child to be taken in under false pretenses. That's a felony in the eyes of the law." Cody paled and snarled under his breath. Robyn's sobs became uncontrollable. Undefined, the courtroom wasn't just observing, it was feeling the weight of a lie, unraveling in real time. Sharon Mills added the final confirmation. Undefined, Robyn Robinson, was not present at the birth. Undefined, she had no legal right to the child at that time. Undefined, the paperwork presented was insufficient to transfer custody legally. Robyn's world collapsed piece by piece. Undefined, the truth had arrived like a relentless storm, leaving nothing standing. Cody's prose, Robyn's trust, the child they created together, all shattered in the blink of a judge's eye. The bailiff handed the judge a thick manila envelope. "Your Honor, this contains financial records related to the case." The courtroom whirred softly, everyone's eyes on the judge. Robyn did not move, her fingers gripped on the lip of the defense table as if attempting to pin herself to reality. Cody's jaw was set, his body coiled as taut as a spring, waiting to spring back. The judge unfolded the envelope and read the first few pages. "We have documented a $120,000 cash withdrawal from an account of Mr. Cody Brown, on April 23, 2016, he read in a flat but serious tone. "The funds are in accordance with witness testimony regarding payments made to Melanie Williams." Cody leapt to his feet. "That does nothing. I was paying subcontractors. This has nothing to do with the child at all." Christine, who sat in the gallery, stood up. Her hands trembled slightly as she held an old telephone. "Your Honor, I have a voicemail from Cody Brown, 2 days prior to the sale. I shouldn't have left it on record, but now it's terribly important evidence." A hush descended on the courtroom. The voicemail was, "Hi Rob, just to recap, the cash is coming from the Coyote LLC account, no paper trail as planned. I'll bring it away on Friday and we'll meet at the park. Get the notary sorted and make sure the girl signs. We can't botch this, okay? If this ever gets out it's both our necks." The words echoed like a gavel inside everyone's heads. Robyn's breath stopped, her muscles tightened. Cody's face went white, the judge's eyes flashed piercing. Miss Brown, the judge coiled his voice. Is that your voice on tape? Cody didn't stir, not a sound escaped him. Mary's voice entered, soft but slashing. You promised you'd changed, Cody. You promised you'd be truthful, but this is against the law. Cody's hands flashed up in protest. You think you know me? You think this confirms something? I did what I could to protect the family. Robyn, shaking, finally got up. You guaranteed me it was legal, she panted, voice cracking. I believed you. I didn't know. The judge leaned back in his chair and saw the two adults unravel before him. This court is not a disagreement among family members. It's a search for truth and a adherence to law. Proceed to the next witness. There was tension among the gallery at that point. There appeared a young woman from the back, her hands shaking, her face set. Your Honor, she whispered, I must testify. I am Savannah Williams. I have something to show. Gasps echoed throughout the courtroom. Christine whispered, it's her, she's been waiting. Savannah approached the stand, her hands clasping a worn black notebook. This is Melanie's diary, she said, trembling voice. Every page the week Ariella was born is in here. It speaks the truth, what Robyn and Cody hid. The judge carefully removed the diary, flipping through. Every page expressed names, dates, times, and confessions. The courtroom silence thickened with each word. Robyn's face turned pale, Cody's fists clenched, powerless against the pile of evidence. Mary leaned forward to Christine and Janelle. This is the final link, she whispered. Truth has a way of rising to the surface, even years down the line. The diary proved everything, the transactions in cash, the threats, the fake documents, and the lies Robyn had been forced to put up with. The linchpin of the family's deceits was starting to give way, and there was nothing to stop it. The courtroom was electric with tension, the kind that pressed against your chest and made every breath shallow. Explanation. Robyn remained still, staring at the diary in the judge's hand as if hoping it would be empty, hoping words didn't exist. Cody's gaze shifted from Savannah to Robyn, panic growing into anger. The judge asked, his deep voice shattering the silence, Miss Williams, is this diary genuine? Did you make these entries yourself? Yes, Your Honor, Savannah answered, her voice tremulous but firm. All of these words are mine. Every jot of mine I made in a second is what happened the week prior. It validates the child called Ariella Mae Brown was never legally Robyn. She was kidnapped from me based on false information. Robyn's fingers tightened around the edge of the table, her wide, frantic eyes whirled to Cody. You said it was all legal, she mouthed, barely above a whisper. Cody moved hastily forward. Robyn, don't shut up, the judge instructed, his gavel slamming on the bench. This isn't a debate between spouses, this is the truth emerging. Go on, Miss Williams. Savannah took a deep breath. Cody visited me in the hospital after I'd given birth. He said that he could help me, that the baby would be taken care of while I healed. I trusted him. I didn't know he was about to orchestrate a full turnover of guardianship over my head. Robyn thought it was right, but she was manipulated step by step. Hushed whispers made their way around the gallery. Christine leaned over and whispered to Janelle, the manipulation. We were deeper than we knew. Mary stood up and moved slowly forward, her presence drawing attention. Your Honor, I would like to produce additional evidence, she announced, holding a sealed envelope. This includes phone calls, letters, and emails between Robyn and Cody regarding the child's guardianship. It corroborates what's in the diaries and shows a concerted effort to cover up the truth. The judge indicated for the documents to be handed over to him. He began reading through them, scanning each page with his eyes. Those records would appear to suggest coordination and falsification of guardianship records and concealment of money transactions involving the child. He went on. Mr. Brown, is there anything you have to say? Cody's jaws locked. He had begun to open his mouth, only to close it again. His assurance gave way to outright panic. Robyn trembled with her body and whispered, I didn't know, I swear I didn't. The judge leaned forward, his face unyielding. Miss Brown, this court has evidence to the effect that you were aware of, or at least were a party to, behavior which constitutes perjury and custodial fraud. Would you like to answer? Robyn's eyes filled with tears. She nodded her head back and forth, fighting to speak. I trusted him, she was able to utter finally, her voice hardly above a whisper. He told me everything was legal. I had no idea. Savannah moved forward, her eyes fixed on Robyn. I trusted you too, she whispered, breaking voice. I thought Robyn was looking out for the best interest of my child, but she was just going along with Cody's scheme, and now, after all these years, the truth comes out." The gallery was quiet, each individual there sensing the gravity of the admission. Cody hunched forward, realizing that the walls of deceit he had built around himself were collapsing and there was no escape. The judge breathed in deeply, looking from Robyn to Cody to the gallery. "We will adjourn for a short period," he said. "When we return, the court will hear evidence regarding the legality of the transfer of guardianship and criminal liability of all parties involved. This case is barely over and the chips for these children are high." Robyn sat back in her chair, fingers curled over her face. Cody had his shoulders squared, eyes darting around as if he was searching for a lifeline that did not exist. Savannah clutched the diary tightly to her, feeling the weight of years of secrets suddenly lift off her shoulders. The courtroom was heavy with anticipation. Everyone had a sense of what was to ensue when it was back in session. The revelations would run deeper and the true extent of the fraud would be laid bare. When the court reconvened after the brief adjournment, a tense hush had fallen in the court. The judge's gaze swept across the court, noting every face, every whisper, every slight shift in stance. He adjusted his glasses and addressed the bailiff. "Please present the guardianship and adoption documents for consideration." There was a heavy stack of documents on the judge's desk. The envelope bore the mark of Robyn and Cody's hand, securely closed, almost ritualistic. Robyn's gaze darted quickly between the judge and the documents once more as if daring them to reveal what she had hoped to conceal forever. The judge read slowly, deliberately, carefully. "Here are records of a transfer of guardianship of the minor Ariella May Brown. On the surface, signatures appear to indicate voluntary consent by all parties involved. However," he fixed his eyes directly on Robyn, "our concern is the validity of these signatures and the means by which they were obtained." Robyn's fists clenched on the table as her hand shook. Cody shifted uneasily, mouthing something at his lawyer, but the lawyer's answer was rigid. No motion, no comfort, only the cold stare of a man who knew the walls were closing in. The first witness was called, Janessa Moore, the notary public who had attested to the documents. She stepped forward, obviously nervous, grasping her note. "Janessa Moore, define your role in the notarization of these documents," the judge directed. I was the notary who notarized the guardianship papers of Ariella May Brown." "Your Honor," Janessa began, her voice shaking a little. "I was instructed by Robyn Brown to hurry and notarize the papers, without questioning from the biological mother." Gasps filled the gallery. Mary leaned forward, her voice a whisper. "There it is, the cover-up." Christine covered her mouth with her hand, eyes wide. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Miss Moore, did you receive the full information about this guardianship? Did you realize the biological mother hadn't signed for it?" Janessa swallowed hard. "No, Your Honor. I thought it was all legal. Robyn said she had it taken care of. I didn't give it a second thought at the time, but now I realize I signed a document fraudulently." Robyn's complexion paled, her lips quivered as she spoke to Cody in a whispery voice. "You said it was legal." Cody's face hardened. He looked around the courtroom, seeking a friend, some sign of support, but everyone's eyes were upon the emerging truth. The judge looked at Robyn. "Miss Brown, do you acknowledge instructing the notary to proceed without full disclosure?" Robyn's answer was little more than a whisper. I didn't know. I thought it was temporary. I trusted him." "Who?" the judge asked. "Who did you trust?" Cody's face was turned toward her, his eyes burning with anger. "Robyn, don't." "Silence," the judge thundered, rapping the gavel lightly. "This is not a discussion between you two. It's one of criminal and legal culpability." "Miss Brown, continue." Robyn wept, shaking her head. I didn't know. Cody told me it was fine. He told me the papers were temporary guardian papers. I thought I was doing something right for a friend, doing something right for the kid. I didn't realize it was fraud." The judge read over the documents, then back to the gallery. "We have now established that the notarization procedure was compromised, and that Robyn Brown acted, if knowingly or unknowingly, in the instructions of another. The court will be forced to examine the financial documents used in this guardianship, and any payments made which may involve coercion or fraud cover-up." Mary stood again, her firm hands holding another envelope. "Your Honor, I have receipts, bank statements and letters that outline the cash transfer between Cody Brown and those who are part of the guardianship process. It confirms what we believe, that this was masterminded for personal and monetary gain, not the best interest of the child." The judge nodded, accepting the evidence. He glared at Cody and Robyn in turn. This court is now examining not just the guardianship case but also the potential felony charges of fraud, custodial interference, and coercion. The facts are mounting, and each word, each document, and each witness is pointing towards the disclosure of the truth. Robyn covered her face in her hands and wept silently. Cody's fist balled at his side and he clenched his teeth as the walls of lies he had built were beginning to fall in on him. The courtroom was in suspended breath, aware that next to be unveiled would hurt even more, and that the DNA evidence was only the beginning of the revelation. The bailiff returned, carrying a thick folder marked confidential financial records. He laid it gently on the judge's bench. The courtroom seemed to shrink around the weight of its contents. They all leaned forward, even Robyn and Cody, who could feel the gravity of what was to be. It's on record these documents include financial transactions belonging to Cody Brown, the custody plan for Ariella Mae Brown, and all individuals concerned, the judge stated, carefully scanning the first few pages. Mary rose, solid but unyielding, her voice cutting through tension. Your Honor, the first is a $120,000 withdrawal in the account of Cody Brown on April 20. There was a cash deposit on that day, in Melanie Williams' account. That deposit falls within the chronology of the guardianship deal for Ariella. Gasps ran through the courtroom. Christine turned to Janelle and murmured, "This is the money trail. It's all in there." Cody's face turned red, his hands slapping on his forehead. That doesn't prove anything. That money was for construction services. I had subcontractors, payments, legitimate business. The judge raised a hand to cut him off. Mr. Brown, these funds are specifically linked to the minor child's guardianship process and the notarized documents. Your defense will have to account for the timing, amounts, and recipient. Continue, Miss Brown. Mary pulled out another page from the folder, setting it gently in front of the judge. There are text messages, voicemails, and letters that confirm the cash transaction was to conceal the child's biological parent and to deceive the guardianship process. The emails instruct the papers must appear legal and untraceable. Robyn stiffened, her chest tightening up. She slowly turned to Cody, whispering, "You lied to me, all of it. Everything you said to me. It wasn't true." Cody's mouth compressed into a thin line. He opened it, but there was no sound. The gallery held its collective breath as the silence hung on. The judge leaned forward. Miss Brown, is it true that you knew, even in part, of these financial transactions? Robyn shook her head wildly, her voice cracking. I didn't know how much of it. I knew there was money. Yes, but he said it was for legal fees and processing. I didn't know it was hush money. I trusted him. I trusted him with everything. The judge's eyes narrowed. Trust does not relieve responsibility. Whether or not you realized fully or partially, you were involved in activities that enabled falsification and concealment. This court must keep sorting out the degree of complicity. He glanced at the bailiff. Call the financial investigator as a witness. We need to check every transaction, every handoff, and every one of the players involved. The doors swung open and a woman in a perfectly tailored suit entered, holding a fat binder of bank records, timestamps, and wire transfers. Her arrival commanded attention. I am Detective Laura Sanders, State Attorney's Office financial investigator, she announced, her tone deliberate, measured. I have reviewed every transaction related to Cody Brown's accounts between January 20. The pattern is clear. Cash withdrawals align with the dates of notarized guardianship documents. Deposits correspond to parties involved in acquiring custody, and instructions were given to avoid leaving a paper trail. Cody's hand twitched as if to interrupt, but the judge's gaze stopped him. Detective, continue. Besides, continued Detective Sanders, a certain envelope of $120,000 cash was documented to have been handed to Melanie Williams on the same day Robyn Brown and Cody Brown arrived to be notarized. The witnesses confirmed the transaction. The courtroom filled with murmurs. Robyn's complexion turned white. She pushed her fingers to her lips, realizing the evidence she had wanted to keep hidden was now glaringly clear. The judge's tone was neutral but laced with power. Mr. Brown, do you deny these transactions, their timing, or their purpose? The arrogance that had protected Cody started to fade for the first time. His jaw tightened, and he glanced at Robyn before flicking his eyes back to the judge. I can explain, he stammered. The judge's gavel came down on the desk. Silence. Explanation will follow after evidence is provided. Continuing with the financial records, Detective Sanders nodded and opened the binder wider. The trail continued. Withdrawals thereafter are supported by further notarized documents, such as payments to purchase silence, tamper with legal outcomes, and maintain custody of the minor child secretly from the biological mother. Each shred of evidence pointed to calculated manipulation and not accident. Robyn's hands shook on the table. The burden of knowledge crushed her. This was bigger than she was, bigger than Kody, and the truth had already started to erode the base of the life she'd built. Mary clasped her hands in her lap, her eyes unflinching. She had waited for this moment, every piece meticulously gathered, every step calculated. Today, the truth was finally emerging into the light. The court was charged, the atmosphere thick as a storm. Everyone in the room was aware of one thing. The DNA test was merely the beginning. Now, the books in the company's accounts turned out to be a calculated, planned scheme that would shake the entire Brown family to its roots. The doors to the courtroom swung open again, and a tall man in a gray suit walked in, carrying a thick folder held firmly under his arm. All eyes followed him as he made his way to the witness stand. "Say your name for the record," instructed the judge. "Henry Keller," replied the man, his voice assertive but unflinching. "I was the notary public who signed the guardianship documents for Ariella Mae Brown." There was a murmur from the gallery. The eyes of all the members of the Brown family turned to him. Robyn's hand came to her mouth, realizing that this evidence might be devastating. "Mr. Keller, were all the papers that were presented to you voluntarily signed?" asked Mary, her voice firm but calm. Henry swallowed hard, faltering. "Not exactly. Some of the signatures were sloppy, tentative. There had been cases where individuals had been directed as to what to say or sign. In some, papers had been backdated." The courtroom gasped. Kody turned white and fidgeted in his seat. Robyn's eyes grew wide with astonishment. She breathed softly. "Backdated? How could he?" Mary went on. "Did you notice any efforts to conceal Ariella's true parentage?" Henry nodded positively. "Yes, instructions had been given to exclude or falsify parts of the document. There were explicit instructions to make the documents report Robyn Brown as the sole parent, although that was not the case." The courtroom was abuzz, with tension mounting. The judge leaned forward, his eyes piercing. "Mr. Brown, do you wish to defend yourself on these charges?" Kody opened his mouth, but no words emerged. He swallowed hard, realizing that denials would be unconvincing in the face of a direct witness who had first-hand information. Mary continued, showing a series of emails and text messages on a large projector screen. "Your Honor, there are emails between Kody Brown and third parties discussing tampering with the notarization process, influencing witnesses, and how to conceal the DNA evidence. One of the letters simply states, 'Ensure she signs as mother, no matter. Ariella's real heritage must be concealed.'" Robyn's eyes were brimming with tears. She shook her head, staring at Kody. How could you do this to our family?" "Undefined." Kody averted his face, unable to meet her eye. Detect changes. The courtroom fell silent, except for the faint hum of anticipation. The judge's gavel sounded, commanding the room to silence. "This evidence, along with the financial records and DNA analysis, leaves no doubt about the pattern of coercion, fraud and purposeful concealment." "Undefined. We will continue to unravel the depth of the scheme, and bring to justice all those who bear responsibility." Henry Keller left the witness stand, his testimony done. Undefined. The courtroom was heavier now, weighed down by the weight of truth. Mary turned to the judge. "Your Honor, the next witness can confirm that Robyn Brown was lied to and manipulated during this entire experience, threatened and intimidated by Kody Brown." Undefined. Their conduct was willful, deliberate, and planned to mislead the biological mother and manipulate custody. A young woman, her hands trembling very slightly, walked to the stand. She had been quietly seated in the gallery, but all at once everyone was staring at her. "Give your name for the record," the judge requested. "Emily Ross," she answered softly, but firmly beyond doubt. "I was Kody Brown's personal assistant during 2016 and 2017, I observed, documented, and in some cases was instructed to participate in measures to manipulate legal outcomes in the matter of Ariella. Robyn's breath caught. She sat forward, eager to hear the truth from someone not a member of the family. Emily went on. I witnessed emails instructing documents to be backdated, discussions about the hiding of DNA evidence, and veiled threats against anyone who dared to question the custody agreement. Undefined. I was instructed time and time again to be quiet, but I cannot let a child be robbed of the truth anymore. Cody's face went white. He panted softly. This can't be happening. The voice of the judge cut through tension. Undefined, undefined. Ross, your statement will be put into the record. Undefined. The court acknowledges the courage it takes to come forward and testify against fraud and intimidation, and your testimony will be considered in assessing the culpability of all concerned parties. Robyn exhaled, a mixture of relief and sadness flowing through her. She looked at Emily with gratitude, understanding the bravery of testifying. Mary smiled, satisfied with the success. Groups of testimony, papers and every witness were building a chain of irrefutable evidence. The truth of Ariella's parentage, and the deliberate falseness that had encircled it, was now beyond concealment. The courtroom breathed a collective pause. Everyone understood the next revelations would drive the story to a darker and more hideous chapter. The courtroom fell silent again as the judge looked around the courtroom, his gaze fixing on Robyn and Cody with an unyielding intensity. The gravity of the previous testimonies hung heavy on every shoulder. The atmosphere was tense, thick with anticipation, as if a single word could shatter the fragile fragments of their serenity. Next, pronounced the judge, comes testimony regarding the legitimacy of signatures on the guardianship and financial documents submitted. A man in his mid-40s, dressed in a conservative suit and briefcase, walked to the witness stand. He was strung tight, clinical in his manner. Give your name for the record, the judge instructed. David Linwood, forensic document examiner, he replied. I have been retained to analyze signatures, handwriting and notarization procedures for the Ariella Mae Brown guardianship documents. A shiver ran through the gallery as David began his examination. From studying the original documents, the notarized duplicates, I can determine that a number of signatures do not reside with the individuals listed, especially the signatures of minor witnesses like Brianna and Aurora Brown, had hints of forgery or were signed unwillingly. Robyn gasped, holding her hands full of tissues. Her eyes wandered over to Cody. What have you done?" she whispered, shaking voice. Cody leaned back in his chair, clenched jaw, white face. He growled, "It's not like that." Mary stepped in peacefully, holding a folder of her own. "Your Honor, we also have documentation, pictures and computer timestamps that all corroborate Mr. Linwood's findings. These clearly indicate that the signatures were being used with less than complete knowledge or authority, that is fraud and criminal tampering." David Linwood continued to state, "In addition, there is documentation of backdating, alteration of financial forms and intentional omissions that were meant to conceal the parentage of the child. The documents were constructed so that they would mislead official legal staff and maintain Robyn Brown the apparent parent." A room full of gasps cut the courtroom. The audience seemed to have taken a communal breath and was holding it. The fallout was enormous. Robyn's mouth fell into her hand. Cody's fists curled onto the table. He looked around wildly, as if searching for someone who might be able to represent him. "Mr. Linwood," the judge stated, voice sharp, "can you inform us if any supposed signatures of Robyn Brown were signed voluntarily and knowingly?" David nodded his head slowly. "No, Your Honor, though certain papers were signed by Miss Brown, she was continuously led on and instructed to sign without full disclosure. Also, some of the minors' signatures were not hers to sign for, such as financial transaction records of the LLC used in this custody racket." Christine, seated silently in the gallery, leaned over to Mary and whispered, "They brought the children into it. They used them as pawns." Mary nodded, barely audible, "And now it comes back against them." The judge's gaze shifted to Robyn Brown. "From the evidence presented and testimony of the forensic examiner, it appears as though documents in your name and relating to your children were altered. Do you have something to clarify?" Robyn's lips trembled. I didn't know. I trusted Cody. He told me everything was legal, that it was just formed to protect Ariella. I never intended. Quiet, the judge interrupted gruffly. The words cut through the room like a blade. Intentions aren't the issue. The law, and by the evidence, there are blatant infractions. Cody's head dropped into his hands. He snarled beneath his breath. No, it can't be this terrible. Mary advanced, brandishing a sealed envelope. Your Honor, I have one final piece of evidence relating to the LLC transactions, minor signatures and financial misconduct, that directly implicates Mr. Cody Brown conforms to the series of fraud in Ariella's guardianship. The bailiff retrieved the envelope and handed it to the judge. He opened it slowly, reading the contents, his eyes focused, and the courtroom went quiet. This contains financial records, timestamps and communications indicating willful manipulation of the guardianship forms, unauthorized signatures and illicit financial transactions. The judge said slowly, this court finds probable reasonable cause to issue felony charges against Mr. Cody Brown for custodial fraud, forgery and conspiracy. Cody's eyes opened wide in horror. He looked around the courtroom, silently pleading with anyone to put a halt to this. No one moved. He stood alone. Robyn leaned forward, speechless. Her cheeks ran with tears, but no sound of weeping was heard. She was numb. Christine breathed softly. It's over for him, and for her really. The judge continued. Ms. Brown, though your function appears limited to having been deceived and forced, the court will examine any other complicity or negligence on your part. Stopgap measures will be instituted to protect Ariella and her siblings from further injury as this matter is decided in its entirety. Robyn's head lifted, a trifle. Ariella, please, she gasped, but the courtroom was focused elsewhere now. Mary's gaze locked on hers, strong and unwavering. The truth is more valuable than all of it, Robyn. That's what we're protecting. As the bailiff began to escort Cody out of the courtroom, the sense of inevitability hung thick in the air. The house of cards was finally collapsing and nothing would ever be the same. The tension was not just legal, it was personal, emotional, generational. Every secret, every manipulation, every lie had been exposed piece by piece, and now the story was going to become even darker, more explosive as the last witness took the stand, ready to reveal the final, destroying fact. The court was quiet, nigh on unbearable, as the last witness walked forward onto the stand. Ariella herself, now old enough to testify, her small body trembling but her voice inexplicably steady. The burden of years of secrets, manipulation and deception had finally caught up to her, and she was not going to be silenced. Your Honor, the prosecutor started softly, we would like Ariella to recount her version of events that led up to today and the individuals involved in faking her parentage. Ariella looked at Robyn initially, confused, in pain, and with a spark of hope. I don't understand, she hardly whispered. I believed Robyn was my mom, but it's not true. Robyn had her hands over her face. She cried freely as she shook her head. Oh, Ariella, I didn't know. I never knew. I thought I was protecting you. Ariella exhaled a shaky breath. I just want to know the truth. Why did this happen? The prosecutor nodded towards the judge. Your Honor, the child's statement, while limited due to age, corroborates discrepancies in family recognition, contacts and previous presentations made by Mr. Cody Brown. Ariella's understanding of her family was intentionally manipulated. The courtroom gasped again. Cody's face flushed, his fists gripping the edge of the table as if trying to ground him. No, I didn't, he stammered. Enough, the judge bellowed. This is the final reckoning. The court has considered extensive evidence, DNA analysis, financial dealings, false documents and testimony. The verdict is unmistakable. He paused, letting the significance of the moment sink in. Mr. Cody Brown, you are now convicted of custodial fraud, forgery and conspiracy. Felony charges have been established. You will be sentenced according to law, and every effort will be made to ensure the safety and welfare of the children in the future. Cody backed away, defeated. The room closed in on him. Robyn slumped forward, exhausted but relieved, finally able to catch her breath after months of doubt, confusion and betrayal. Mary came to Robyn and Ariella, wrapping a protective arm around them.
The truth always comes out, Robyn, and now we can start to heal. Ariella embraced Robyn. I still love you, she said softly, even if you're not my mom the way I thought. I know that you care about me. Robyn kissed the top of Ariella's head. I always have, always. The judge concluded with, this case serves as a reminder of the importance of transparency, integrity and protection of the law for those who are defenseless. Let this be a lesson not just for this courtroom, but for every home who believes secrets can be kept. As the gavel fell, the room took a collective breath. Some wept, some sat in mute shock. Outside, the sun dipped below the horizon, its rays painting the stairs with long shadows, but in here a new day was unwinding, one founded on truth, responsibility and the slow and painstaking healing process. Robyn, Ariella, and their family came forth as one. Though the future was unsure, it was theirs to journey truthfully for the first time. The lies had been exposed, the felonies set, and the remaining ties were knitted not by lie, but by power, love and the unshakable truth. And as the courtroom was emptied, one thing lingered in the minds of all who beheld it: even the most hidden secrets cannot stand up against the light of truth.